And good evening, everybody. Welcome to our weekend waffle. Hopefully, the sound's better this weekend. I've worked on it. Hope you've had a great weekend. The weather's been pretty fine, except for the cyber, I guess, with that change moving in, as we talked about in the forecast this morning and yesterday evening. But otherwise, it has been a pleasant day. The air has been nippy. Hello to chat. Lovely to see you, Mr. Sharp and Rachel and Mr. Well. Thank you for your ongoing, obviously, activities. And also, happy birthday to Mr. Well for Friday. He turned the ripe old 45. Congratulations, Mr. Wells. Mr. Well, he's probably laughing at me right now. If he's listening, hopefully you are doing well. And I hope everybody else has had a fab weekend as well. We're going to pop into it pretty quickly and get on with it tonight because there's not a lot to talk about. There's some interesting weather coming up this week. And then we've got our usual waffly weekly weather WTAFs because I've got a couple of great examples again tonight. Here we go. Mr. Well has just tagged in now. Happy birthday, Mr. Well. And those 45 candles, I heard they called the fire brigade, but I'm sure you're doing okay. Right, let's get into it. We are going to look at weatherware as we usually do, what's happening this week. And without further ado, let's get on to it. So we're going to not spoil the effect. Quickly look at radar. Obviously, we've had that southerly move in this afternoon. I do actually love this view of the radar. This is the actual surface-based scan that just shows you basically what's happening on the very surface. And it's actually very effective for picking up these wind boundaries. And we can see this one coming in now. This is that southerly, southeasterly we had this afternoon. It's not really a southerly change. It's really just a southerly surge into this upper system that's moving across very slowly. But you can see the consequences of that is we forecast this morning, some coastal drizzle. And there's also some stuff appearing in the west. I'm assuming it's probably just more low cloud, but if anybody's out that way and you are getting a bit of a snizzle or drizzle, let us know. But generally speaking, most of this stuff you can see here is actually the wind and the moisture and the low cloud being picked up by the radar band. You can fact see the initial part of the change coming through here, that very thin line. You can see there, that's a bit bigger. How about that? It's pretty big, but we'll make it a bit bigger. No one ever said it's never too big, did they? Right, so we can see that here. That's the initial part of that southerly coming through. And then we just rock them back and forward. You can see what it does is that bit of extra moisture in those sort of lower layers gets trapped, a bit of cumulus forms, but this is actually just moisture as well, and that wind being picked up as it gets thicker is probably the better term. But as that moisture profile builds up, as that southerly pushes in, radar picks up a bit better. It's a bit more reflective on the radar. So I use the term thicker because that's probably more a sort of layman's term to obviously understand. But when you look at the atmosphere, a side profile, you've got very shallow, which is very thin, and of course you've got a deeper moisture profile, which is quite thick. And this southerly in the lower levels, anyway, for example, is reasonably thick. Unfortunately, the air above it is horrendously dry, which is why we're seeing sort of these flat pancakes that are cumulus. It looked good there for the afternoon. Most of the stuff here off the coast too, I think is probably more reflective. If I was going to change the altitude, you can see here, it filters out most of that. So there's definitely a small shower out there in the southwest. And you can see the sort of coastal drizzle stuff moving up. You can see some showers off the coast, and you can see some stuff down in the Southern Highlands. But by and by, we're not expecting a real lot from this tonight. In terms of that, if you get something, congratulations, you are lucky. But otherwise, there's more just going to be some extra cloud, and that should push off a bit later to a mainly clear night again, mainly clear skies and dry air. Should start to pervade and push through again as the sort of system starts to pulses and pushes through. And we should get another crispier night, although it would be, I think, about 6 to 10 degrees tonight in temps, as opposed to last night, which was absolutely beautiful. Mr. Brayley, lovely to see you. Good evening. Thank you for joining us as well. I'm trying to keep on an eye on the comments or any questions, but then that's so far, which is great. All right, let's have a quick look at today's observations according to the Bureau of Guessology, and we can see that temperatures basically fell within what we forecast today as well. We've got the minimum at 17 degrees at Terry Hills, but it was a bit chilly. And even though there was a lot of sun, that air was cold, as I told you in the forecast this morning and last night. And as a consequence of that system to the west and a bit of the outflow or the dead air from all the activity to the west pushing across, and that down mixing, which is also what helped cause the fog this morning. And I believe it's quite thick out in the southwest and northwest and west. So glad we sort of gave people a heads up for that as well. And we can see again temps were 17 at Terry Hills, through to a very urban heat influence of Obbs Hill on 20 degrees. And when Obbs Hill is like, a good nearly degree, it's only sort of half a degree more than Sydney Olympic Park, but I think there's definitely a side issue with Sydney Olympic Park and Obbs Hill. We all know Obbs Hill it's in the middle of a damn city, surrounded by massive highways. So Sydney Olympic Park's been trending quite warm too, I've noticed, for the last 6 months, and I think there's obviously something going on there. There's been quite a bit of um, development, I think, and there's been units and stuff going up. I'm just wondering if they're affecting sort of the wind flows through the area, but they're consistently now, like Obbs Hill. You can look at today's example, for example, nearly all of the basin 18 degrees, except for Penrith out there 20. Now, I believe that 100% because it had to play a bit of down mixing and stuff from the winds pushing across the Great Dividing Range and the Blue Mountains. But the city and the coast don't get that effect. And you look everywhere is 18 degrees except for obviously 20 and Olympic Park 19.8, basically 20. So there's definitely some UHI there. So you can basically say today was 17 and 20, with most of the coast sitting on actually, in fact, most of the basin sitting on a chilly-ish 18. And it definitely felt chilly too if you ever popped outside. I mean, most of the feels like temperatures sort of 10 to 12 degree range. It was chippy. There wasn't too much wind, which is interesting as well. So a lot of that feels like just came from pure cooler air, sort of flatlining and descending because the ridge and the high pressure that's been around, sort of dumping the dead air from this upper low and system to our west is slowly working its way to the east. And we got the consequences for it. Lucky us, hey. Zero rain at this stage to record. Hopefully we might see something in the gauges tonight and early tomorrow, but I doubt very much. You might get 0.2, maybe 0.5 mil if you're lucky, or a low-flying ibis passes you by, but that's probably all we're going to get. Okay, let's have a look at the week ahead. And we have got to thank the beautiful Met Center for their brand new Weather Watch Met Center one weather wall, I think they're calling it. It's actually pretty good. So, and being able to ditch the Meteor Blue issue products now, because this is actually pretty good. Although I'm not sure the model they're using at this stage is probably a good one, because I know that you can see here they are sort of forecasting 20 for Sydney, which is technically true because obviously did tick 20, but we all know that there was a UHI was not 20 degrees, it was 18 degrees, so it's a bit warm. And last night I noticed its minimums were pretty 12, 2 or 3 degrees above what we actually recorded to. So I think they got a little bit of work in just tweaking whatever model they're using. And I couldn't actually pinpoint which one. Didn't line up with the GFS icon or Axis C, mind you. So maybe it's just they're using a bit of a mishmash of everything. Maybe they have their own. But good on them. I really love it. And it's one of the weather companies owned by actual weather interested storm chaser, qualified Met by the name of Anthony Cornelius, who is a fantastic meteorologist, very talented in actually forecasting severe weather and severe weather influences, and being able to sort of extrapolate that and pull it down and break the bits and pieces down. And his reanalysis of weather events is actually excellent to read if you ever have an inkling to sort of see that sort of information. But yeah, very, very, very talented, very clever man. And a very nice man too. All right, so we're gonna have a look at the week ahead. Enough wobbling on about that. What we can see here, I know it's pretty a little bit hard on the old eyes, but sorry, you'll have to bear with me. Ignore the top. We're going to look at that forecast and said it's pretty much what's going to happen all week. Cloudy with some showers on and off, and that's definitely it. The key thing here is, though, is what I've been flagging for a few days, is this potential increase in wetness or moistness towards this week, especially from Wednesday onwards. We may see a little splash on Monday, but it's nothing here. You can see here it's not a real lot. It's really Wednesday onwards, and it's actually been upgrading all week. So when I first started monitoring this, this over here was probably 20 to 25 mils at most, and you can see now it's up to 48.2. That's a good trend, and you can see here the probabilities that are happening actually are really starting to thick up, and we'll get down to those in a minute. But we can really see how the red line is obviously the highest sort of the highest of probability, or the decile 9, which is really like the 90th percentile, what they expected. And that sort of yellowy line in the middle is really basically what the median is, which is basically what's going to happen, or what they think is going to happen. It's still pretty decent, decent range, 15 to 40, 15 to 50 mils, I think, across the week. We'd all be sort of happy with. Um, the thing I'm liking is it's spread out pretty uniformly across the days, which is a good thing to see. There's not just like one giant, giant accumulation, which always raises red flags for me, because it means that some models overreading the situation, or not dealing with timing, or moisture, and a whole lot of other sort of issues as well. But this one here, it's uniform across the days, which is a good sign. It's picking up the pattern and it's reading it quite nicely. And really, what it's going to be, and we'll look at satellite picture in a minute. There's a sort of transition from this meridional sort of system we've had, which is, north-south stuff, into a bit more of a wintry type stuff, and it's going to allow a bit more colder air and stuff from the south pushing up. It's going to collide with the leftover moisture that's hanging around from that sort of regime we've had for weeks and weeks and weeks, which has allowed the high pressure system to sit around and blast us with its ridge for 3 weeks now. But we did, if you remember, back in the start of June, we did flag that June was going to be really unseasonably dry, and so far we have been bang on the thing. And I think even if this does fall, um, average for June, I think it's about 170 mils, something like that. So even if we get 48 mils at its best, we're still way below average. So I think pretty much we're going to nail what we said back in the start of June. But as I said, uniform across the days. So you can see here, really good accumulations a couple of days. Looking at yeah, I don't think here that's some good falls. Like, I don't think 48.2. I don't think the maths are adding up quite quickly. They may have to check that. I think actually maybe the 48.2. Not sure is over, but I mean, if you look here, that's pretty good 5, and this one here is a good 15. So what's that, 20? I know, yeah, my math's terrible. And 35. Yep, nearly 50. But I mean, I'd happily take 5, 15, 10, 15 every day. That's a good consistent fall, allows enough to soak into the ground, really recharge the water table, and water the gardens without having sort of any sort of issues with runoff. And it also allows the mayor to get out and do his lawns too, because I think a lot of this is going to be falling sort of evening and overnightish, which tends to be sort of the way with these sort of old, sort of the 80s winter changes we used to see, where you get sort of the nights of sort of drizzly, windy, sort of rainy sort of stuff. That's what looks to be happening. But we'll see what happens, washes out. But anyway, the thing here is, of course, that's really what we're looking at now. Is this is the daily falls and accumulator. This is the stack, basically, giving the deciles. And so when you talk about deciles, is basically talking about the chances of a fall. So the 90 deciles, like, it's getting up there to, that's the highest fall. And then, of course, the 10th decile is like, it's likely going to fall to that, and it's normally like a lower level. So 90th decile is at 24.5, you can see, and you can see the mean's about 7, and so really that's what the average is saying. And he said the 10th would be pretty, not much. So that's where that sort of falls, the numbers fall in between those two. Of course, we'd all love a 90th decile, which is really like a heavy rainfall. We don't want a 10th decile, which is basically another IBIS low flying an AWS gauge. So fingers crossed we get that leaning towards the 90th. But again, that's what those two gauges show, just the consistency, the uniformity of the falls, which we want to see. And of course, this is the part that I really like. This is this is basically saying there's a good chance of over at least 5 mils every day. And of course, then they decrease as you get up into these, that 90th decile I was just telling you about. With statistics, I can't say the word statistics, so please make me repeat it. But then you can see what I'd like to is it's a good accumulation across the time. So it's not just one fall, it's steady accumulation, which is what I like to see. And it's not just starts in that sort of afternoon and continues on into the evenings. I do like when I see sort of falls like that, because that's generally, you can see that's a good sort of change. Is what you want to see, steady accumulator rainfall, not one big heavy fall. So I'm loving that sort of scenario. A side consequence, of course, with that is we're going to see a real drop in our temperatures. We've got this sort of, and this is another good way actually too of when you look at, if anybody is in science related or mathematics related, you obviously would have heard, of waves, cos waves and sine waves and that sort of stuff. And generally speaking, you know, the atmosphere and water tend to, exhibit these as well. Don't ask you to pull apart the physics, because I still have to get my head around that, and I'm absolute shit hot at math, not. So, but really, the modulation of these waves, or not sure the technical term again off the top of my head, but basically from the peak of the wave to the trough of the wave, really gives you an idea of what the weather is doing in terms of this oscillation. So you can see this sort of pattern here is very high pressure ridge, because you have like good mild temps in the day, and then it plunges quite at night time, and that's definitely indicative of radiational cooling, which is you can read into that and say that's very much a high pressure scenario. And then you can see here how the this wave, the temperature, the peaks and troughs narrows, and actually is quite more like my heart line, which is and you can see that the distance between the peak and the troughs is actually a lot less. And that is very indicative of cooler weather, sort of trough around the place, but some good rainfall changes moving through. And the other thing too is you can see here the change in this dew point too. You can see it fluctuating. So you can sort of the early morning moisture, which is a consequence of the stable air. At nighttime, the radiation cooling, the moisture sort of gathering near the surface. Like dew and that sort of stuff. And as the day gets milder, obviously the dew point falls a bit, because you have that normally westerly regime, whether it's northwesterly, southwesterly, pushing through a bit of dry air, a bit of downslope off the Great Dividing Range. And then, of course, at night time, the dew point bumps up again, and with that radiational cooling kicks in. That's quite a that sort of normal sort of like atmospheric tide. Low pressure, high pressure. Sorry, low tide, high tide, and then you get this huge kick here, and then you can see pretty much stays the same the whole time around. And that's you can see like a slab of moisture moving in from the south, and that's a good thing to always see. In terms of just available to be actually rained on. So without no moisture, get rain obviously is very difficult. So just upgrade and just refresh yourself. Love it. Very clever. And you can see, stays very tight, modulate, these wavelengths. I love to see that. This is definitely indicative of a wetter signal for a start. When you always hear me rabbiting on about wetter signals in forecasts, this is what a wetter signal looks like. This is definitely a dry signal, and this is why I always get the meteorological profiles, the oh my god, I can't even get my brain to it this afternoon. But anyway, the dynamics of the air, like the cross section of the airs, meteograms, that's the word I'm looking for, because it's a great way to actually check out this for yourself, the signals that the atmosphere is trying to send. Now, obviously, lately it's been giving very mixed signals, just like a few Tinder dates, but generally speaking, it's starting to really get its shit sorted now, and we're starting to see, probably, as I said, a season changing sort of pattern. You can see this ridge locking high, locked in, not doing much, and then you can see now cooler, closer sort of wavelength. That's great to see at last. So fingers crossed we actually see that push through. And you can see one of the consequences of that is you can see just this normal, the back and forth of the sort of ridge stuff, and then you can see a whack, the sort of change comes in on that Wednesday, Thursday, and you can see pretty consistently sort of pushing up now from that southerly direction. You can see just pure southerlies for most of those 3 to 4 days, which again is what you want to see in terms of for longevity, for good showers, stream showers, whatever's going to be caused. But that's the sort of profile again we want to see. We don't want to see this sort of flat line here, which is basically pretty stable, normal sort of geostrophic flows associated with high pressure systems, which is just off, westerlies, offshore, light to moderate winds like we've seen for 3 weeks. So again, when you look at that, the picture that the data is painting, gives good signals. So let's all cross our fingers and hope we see it. You can see here, so this is a bit of a the hazards. So this is one of the new products too, which is great. I love it. Gives flags about where there's and I think this is pretty based on an EC product actually, because EC do this with a lot of stuff. They sort of have a severe weather type flagging or system which sort of forecasts strong winds and heavy rains and surf and that sort of stuff. And they've the guys at the Weather Watch have done a bit more and added in some obviously fog and some fire risks as well. And I think that's the more consequence of probably the winds. I don't think that a southerly wind is going to create much fire danger, to be honest. So that's probably more of the algorithm they'll probably have to tweak and probably have to think about. If the wind's coming out of the south, there's pretty not much fire danger, to be honest. If that was coming out of the west at that sort of speed, then probably looking at moderate stuff. But otherwise, you'll see here cool, right throughout the period, which is great. We're starting basically this week. Most of this week is cool, but you think you see here mostly mornings, then you start to see it transition, and then you'll see it sort of flatten out and not appear much, and that's very indicative of, that cool change has been around. Because if anybody remembers, cool changes, the day's cooler, but so the night's a bit warmer because the cloud cover, so it does tend to sort of influence it, work itself out. These here you can see very much predominant, predicated about that sort of overnight stuff, which is a very high pressure indicative, clear skies, radiational cooling at the max, temperatures plummeting, and getting down to cool temperatures, and even to the coast, because we saw that westerly sort of offshore flow before. That will help keep the marine influence off the coast and not sort of sticking its fingers in like it normally does at night time. So all in all, you can see that's that pattern change that I've been rabbiting on about, and it's good to see. And again, this is another one that does pick it up very nicely. The change in humidity, you can see again that massive bump, and then that consistent, uniform wet signal coming through on these sort of peaks and troughs. All in all, says that this week looks to be better, but we will see. Oh, and happy solstice too. The shortest day of the year. But that weird lag effect that we get, we'll actually start to still see darker, longer nights for a period of time yet before they start to swing around. I think it's late July or early August they start to sort of reverse the curse. But yeah, we're into the sort of darkest period of the year now. Yeah, joy and everything. I don't anybody else noticed it, but I just noticed for the last 4 or 5 days, especially around sort of 4:15, 4:30 now, it is starting to get a lot darker than it was just 2 weeks ago. I mean, clearly, obviously, because but I mean, I'm talking about noticeably is pretty a better word. Just you think, oh, I could put the light on and actually see, what's going on. And when I start prepping the forecast, it's pitch black, as opposed to sort of being twilight like it has been for a while. All right, enough from the rabbiting for me. Let's have a look at, we're going to look at the wire now, and just see what the hell is going on and what's causing this. And to do that, we're going to pop up the old windy satellite picture. And slow this down a bit for us all, and it's going to throw its conniptions as usual. And really what you can see is this upper system moving through. You can see that jet stream activity with that high cloud off to the west. We've had this upper system here sort of hanging around, not doing a lot, and that's why really nothing's been happening. But just the last pretty 12 hours or so, bit of a low. That's probably the leftovers of the upper low. That's all the trough moving off the coast, and that's allowed that dry, cool air that I was talking about to really pop in and make the days feel cooler. It's also contributed to that cloud that's arrived this afternoon. So it wasn't really a southerly change, even though there is quite a strong southerly surge in the back of it. It's just more a weak upper low. I mean, I'm looking at the service cloud. It's pretty mid-level looking at that cloud, but there's a bit of an upper low. But it's that system moving off the coast, and what it's doing is it's allowing, on the flip side, on the reverse side, this cooler air from the south to actually push up. And then eventually what we're going to see is that stuff we can see moving in from the west, and we'll just zoom out now and let Windy can have an absolute breakdown, but that's okay. You can join the club. And we're going to move the Northern Australia because we don't really care about that this time of year. It's not going to do that. Let Windy have its conniptions, give it a Bex until they have a lie down, but it will load very shortly. And what's going to really kick it off is this upper trough again moving in from WA. And you can see WA is not really getting much out of it, and it's actually reasonably mild. And I think a bit of a rain being going through. We can see it fall apart. But what it's going to do is this little system here is going to come across and it's going to connect with this sort of upper system here, and they're going to actually conspire and work together and actually do something for us to change. And this is the thing that is what I'm watching very closely. And this is what's going to fire up really a few days of cooler weather, and it's not going to get any close to us, and there's going to be no lows, that sort of stuff. So don't let anybody sell trash to you or that clickbait to you. What it's going to do is actually it's going to kick up a lot colder air on the flip side and the reverse side of this low, and help connect with this upper system and really just fire up a lot of cooler air from the Southern Ocean. So that's going to feed into it. And of course, it's also going to pump up some Southern Ocean air and moisture as well. And so generally speaking, that's what's going to basically drive us once this stuff clears through, and this will come through later tomorrow, probably Monday sometime, which is why we're not going to expect to see anything till sort of Wednesday, even though we might get sort of a dribble out of this. But as I said, this is the the start of it, and this is that one. If you remember, I said about it last week. We're watching that one to the southwest of South Africa, or Africa. This is the final, that sort of the two-part series we see coming through here, and that's definitely going to be influencing us uh, ahead this week and into next weekend, if all goes to plan and things actually work out for once, and rather than um, basically gaslighting us, which is what we've had for 3 weeks. All right, let's have a quick look now at we've looked at the rainfall outlook. We're going to look at now what's going to come ahead, and we'll look at pull up the CFS and see and have a look at exactly what it's throwing in terms of looking ahead. So this is fresh off the server. The zeros that hasn't loaded yet, but this is the most recent run. And we're going to see here. So surprise, surprise, this week, 20th to 27th, we can see there is a tilt towards bit of a wetter conditions, which is what we've just been showing you. So that's good to see. CFS is sort of backing up. The other interesting feature here too, which is I sort of did raise an eyebrow too. We all heard the super El Nino's coming. We're all, need to pack our things and say our, goodbyes to our loved ones, because it's obviously the end of the world. If you believe any of the stuff that's the trash that's sort of trolling around at the moment, and all the click hyperbait. But this is the fascinating thing that's caught my eye. It's very un El Nino like, I must say. So it just goes to show that there's no one template for El Nino or La Nina, by the way. Every event is taking on its merits, and every event will work out differently. And the thing I will say is that I know the Australian bureaus, with gleefully rushed out and declared, well, we're in El Nino, whereas America has not yet. It says we're still in the watch, and it, an El Nino is just as important to them as it is to us, because it means that their west coast is going to get above average rainfall. Of course, they see, quite savage flash flooding off the Rockies to the west, along through California and sort of stuff, right along the coast there from that, because they get these I forget the American term, but the atmospheric rivers, and they call it is it the rain train, or the Pacific Train, something like that, or somebody will let me know in the chat. But there's a specific term they use for that, and that's definitely one of the things fueled by El Nino, which is this atmospheric river of moisture in the mid and upper levels, which is dragged in from the Pacific and rams up against the Rockies, and they get torrential rain and can cause quite significant flooding issues right along that arid coast. Good for their dams, mind you, and also terrible for their ski seasons too, from what I understand. But um, yeah, so that's again, yeah, the NOAA have not declared an El Nino at this stage. They're just saying we're still in an El Nino watch. So we have that usual tussle between. Now I know, clarify right now, I know the Americans have a different forecasting regime when it comes to it. We're a little bit more readily to fire the gun here in the South Pacific than they are. They look for, I think it's an average, is it over 3 months, where we just say 1 month. And they also have an index called the ONI, which is an index that measures cooling and sea surface temperature variations out in that 3.4 and 4 Nino zone, that they need to hit a threshold. I think is it 10 weeks or 12 weeks off the top of my head. But the ONI, yeah, is critical in their declaration of when an Nino, they say an El Nino has obviously come about, or in play. And so they're obviously carefully and closely watching what the ONI is doing, but it's not in an El Nino phase as yet. So it's like an important delineation between the Bureau of Meteorology's premature speculation, to the Americans, who tend to wait till the Rockies are flooding and California sort of like swimming out to sea, and then they say, oh, maybe it might be an El Nino outside. Joy, let's have a look. So the point of that ramble was, of course, is that don't listen to the clickbait hyperbole you're going to hear for weeks and weeks, including from the Bureau, I will say, and call them out very clearly now. There is no such thing as a super El Nino. There's no such thing as a super La Nina. It's just obviously strong or moderate, and that's essentially describing the index of the numerical value of where the El Nino sits in terms of the sea surface temperature variance, whether it's cooler or warmer. There is no definition that there is not even any expectation or forecast weather for a super, for example, in either terms, and it's purely a media-driven hyperbole clickbait paid weather sites who use these terms to obviously drive engagement and get Mr. Zuckerberg and Mr. Page, I think on YouTube we worked out last time, to put their hand in their pocket and hand over some of their hard-earned cash to these people. It's purely a grifter term. It's not even a correct meteorological term. So when you see it, laugh and know that it's not a correct term. And it's disappointing that it's obviously promulgated by even more reputable sites about saying super. Um, shouldn't say it, shouldn't use it. Not a real, not a scientific term. If you're a true weather site, stick to the term. Strong. You would even, if you needed to delve into very strong, if that's what your perchance is, but it is not super in any means or ways or terms. Um, all right, again, off the soapbox, and we can see as we talked about, and this is the thing that I really like. This is now, if you recall back at the start of June, and despite last week's depressing state of play, what we saw, lots of these browns. This is a fascinating flick over into a of wetter conditions. Now, I don't know. I'm putting my skeptical scarf on here and reserving my judgment. And because the thing I like about this is that, if we had like one of these like concentrated little blobs of, above average rain, you'd say, okay, they're sort of getting stuck on a Tasman low, or maybe even the ghosty ECLs, which seem to have retired into, the Mornington Peninsula retirement village and getting the service departments. But this has a very onshore persistent flow look to it. You can see it has this, these bulges here, and you can see again the bulges around us and the Illawarra, which is really that persistent onshore sort of southeast easterly sort of. No, it's more southeast, I think, than in England, even a bit tad southerly. You can see the southeast is here for the southeast Queensland area. Um, Interesting. We'll see if CFS is just again yanking the gaslighting chain, or that's true, but that's definitely a tenet for what we saw last week. And then looking ahead, you can see that pattern does persist into mid-July, which is what we flagged back at the start of July, and what CFS was flagging, if you recall. It did say that it thought July and August would be wetter. Again, this looks very Tasman lows, subtly changes. There's no real ECL signature there for me at this time, but still better than nothing. And that does persist. So what it would say, and this belly basically, there's just average rainfall across. Now, don't forget, and anywhere sort of above, the New South Wales South Australian border, it's the deadest, driest, quietest time of year. So when you see average like that, it doesn't mean anything other than they may get 0.2 or 0.5 a mil instead of 1 millimeter. But it's generally like a non El Nino pattern what we're seeing there. So um, again, interesting times. It's why I always laugh when they rush to make these declarations, and then the weather does completely opposite for the next few times. If this, of course, CFS does come true, we haven't had any other sort of contrary model we can check yet, because all the other models we see, like EC and bits and pieces, on the EC site, and also on Copernicus, the climate site, won't update until the 1st of July. So at this stage, CFS is standing out on its own, throwing out these forecasts, but it got June pretty spot on at this stage, despite a few wobbles. So we'll see. And then, of course, moving to the end of July, and this is definitely looking more like an El Nino influence. You can see how that tongue of below or lower than average rainfall, that dry sort of stuff coming in really from that northeast and then dipping south. That's really a Pacific, Western Pacific influence, coral sea influence, really starting to dry up that moisture that's being injected into the east. So interesting. And you'll notice that those anomalies we saw there too now reverse and gone completely the other way. And this is very El Nino-ish profile. Tropical areas well below average in terms of their anomaly, pretty serious anomalies. And then you can see like a real clear delineation around that sort of New Caledonia, Tahiti, sort of off to the right of that picture. Very much an El Nino signature. And you can see again now there's negative anomalies, just reinforcing and sitting there. And you can see that real tongue of dry air, moisture deprivation really starting to reinforce as we head into August. And if we were a betting person, I would say August is probably looking pretty crappy if I was to pull it up. But we won't look at it tonight. No real need to make us depressed yet. We'll just think about, like they say, lie back and think of England. We'll lie back and think of July and all that lovely green you just saw, and just sort of flush away that pale yellows just for now. Stay in that moment, stay with it. You put the candles on, hold your hands and sing Kumbaya, and let's all just chant and hum together and just meditate on the greens. The greens, not the green party, mind you, but the greens and the radio and the rainfall chart. Let's just focus on that. But yeah, that's really. So I think still we're looking at it as a sort of. uh, I think, yeah, we're looking at sort of a wetter end. We could say maybe to June, and then a wetter start to July, and then we see it does start to taper off quite significantly, unfortunately. But we'll keep an eye on that for you. All right, and we are going to have a look now at the weekly WTAFs, because there's some beauties out there today. I'm sure you're not unsurprised at that. And let's go. We're going first up. We're going to have a look at. Hopefully, Facebook hasn't refreshed. Oh, it every time does. It so annoys me. I literally have it open on the page and it refreshes and then goes to a completely different page, and it's so frustrating. So sorry. I went took a screen grab of it, but of course then it gets crappy. I'm going to try and scroll down and see if it's here, because I don't use Facebook at all, much at all, so it shouldn't be too far away. But in saying that, it probably will be. Oh, there's our favorite site. Um, this is that rain. I think I just saw someone talk about rain in Darwin. Like, I have family up there, and they said it was been raining up there, which is interesting. Um, oh, where's it gone? It's always the way. I even had it open on the page so it would not refresh, and it still did refresh. Um, Anyway, it's this is gonna drive me nuts. Um, I hate you, Mark Zuckerberg. Um, take that. Come on. It was a crypto site forecasting weather, and I just loved it. It was hilarious. I'm getting a guess it's actually associated with one of the long-term sort of long-term forecasters out there, like look at the moon and the influence of the sun and more bits and pieces like that. The astro bits and pieces forecasting, because some of the terminology they were using was quite similar, but it was just hilarious. I thought a crypto site. Oh, come on. Like, it was today. The post was today, you crappy thing. Um, oh, I couldn't even. There it is, Kryptonet. I knew it was there. So there we go, Kryptonet. Um, Climate intelligence. When I see that, automatically, is it a tautology, or is it a no, it can't be called tautology, because you can still the climate. Well, the climate technically can't be intelligent because it's a non sentient being. But we'll give them a pass this time. But it's not tautology. What is it? Um, that's the other one. The weird one. That's weird English words I can never remember, which is basically contradicting itself, but I can't say it. I'm sure somebody in the chat will tell me. But this is what I saw. Let's bring it up. Oxymoron, thank you. I was going to say an oxymoron. Yeah, that's the one. But I was thinking maybe that was referring to a politician, but um, no. But I mean, yeah, I mean that's still relevant to politicians. But I saw this and I absolutely love this. So they pulled up a rain map from 2019 for the period 29 Jan to 4 February. Um, 2019, if you recall, was it was supposed to be in a pretty strong El Nino, or the back end of a strong El Nino. And then we've got 2000 to 2027 rain outlook, and I'm just like, what? If you've ever seen clickbait, this is pretty up there in terms of that, because people go, what is this about? And come away pretty more confused than when you're just looking at the rainfall outlook at the map itself. But the post actually does talk about, and I love this, something big is coming. Now, I'm not sure if they're talking about their personal life or they're actually talking about the weather, but we'll qualify and say it is the weather. Cast your mind back to January 2019, the Townsville, North Queensland floods. no one ever says this is the thing that sucks people in. So remember, if we talked about last week, the typical grifter will always throw in a sliver of truth because that's what connects their story to and gives them credibility. When in essence, that sliver of truth is either A, taking it well out of context, or B, well, really, it's just taken a context. Usually, that's how they can craft their story around it. So you put this foundation of truth, actual truth. 2019, yes, there was some pretty horrific floods up in North Queensland. That was around those Townsville floods as well. And again, but here's where they deviate is that they're trying to draw some sort of parallel and comparison. No one ever says it doesn't rain in El Nidos, and that's something I've pointed out for a few weeks now. And this is where it gets annoying with all these hyperbole clickbait type sites, the grifters out there. What was it last week? Get your radio and make sure you've got your emergency kit packed. Oh, I was still lolling for that the rest of the whole week. Every time I saw that, it was like, yeah. Um, it will rain often tends to happen in El Nino events is that you'll have shorter, sharper, probably more intense events, not unusual. But the thing that people will forget to say is that it's the monsoon season, and the monsoon is not only influenced by Enzo as well. There's a few other influences that drive the monsoon, and not only that, you can still get a monsoon season in El Nino. It's normally short, sharper. I've lived through many of those in Darwin, as Mr. Will has, I'm sure. And they tend to be, they tend to arrive bang on, 421 sometime around Australia Day in January, maybe into early February, and they last through to early March, but they'll deliver pretty, not in almost the season's rainfall in those 4 weeks. But it still rains, just rains in a more concentrated period. So again, this is what this, something big's coming, X, Y, Z. You're just telling us climatologically what happens anyway, and this just sells a few more posts for you. Good job. But please don't use the words climate intelligence at all. In that it's just offensive, really. I'm obviously being sarcastic and tongue in cheek. This is what WTA is. Don't get too snippy or judgmental on me. It's a Sunday evening, and we're staring down the battle of another Monday. Yeah, this is the first one, and I just love this part about know the future trademark. I mean, you can't trademark know the future. Like, I mean, it's been around for a long time. And what about know the future? Does this say? The signals are in the data. I mean, there's signal in every data. It could be dry, it could be wet. Every piece, as I just showed you before, about those, the curves up and down, the peaks and troughs in that looks like a cos sign, signal, for example, or a sign, whatever you want to see into it. Those are mathematically more aligned than I am. There are signals anywhere you can see. You can make anything say signals. The real key is about interpreting that and making that, known to people, understandable, digestible, but also putting your neck on the line and saying this is what we called out. Like, something like vague like this is like something big's coming. There's a signal in the models. So when something does happen, they can say we predicted it because they didn't say it was going to be either wet or dry. They said there was something big coming. And then that sliver of facts, which is linking it to the Townsville floods. So, you know, I don't know. I love this part though. And for the first time, Australia's agricultural and emergency management sectors will have access to week-by-week national disaster risk guidance resolved months ahead of time. Like, first of all, I don't know how you can resolve something months ahead of time because the strict definition and the actual literal definition of resolution is that it's finalized, like it's happened. If it's, I can understand maybe you mean settled months ahead of the time in terms of, the forecast, but, again, going back to what I said, sliver of facts, words that sound credible, reinforcing, professionalism and reliability and trustiness, but it's the wrong word. You don't resolve something months ahead, not unless you're going a time machine. And I'm pretty sure that Australia's agricultural and emergency management services have already had access to, this week by week national disaster stuff. through the bureau and through other agencies out there providing stuff. I know, there's one that we see quite frequently, which is and I always forget their name, but they produce the weekly weather maps that show, the maps that show, strong winds here, flood warnings here. I mean, they've been around for years, and the Met's working for them. They never ever claim to resolve things well out in the future. So, and then obviously with a site named Cryo a Cyaneptech, sorry, which is there's a bit of crypto behind there. If you click it as well, hello. All it best is it's crystal ball gazing, and take it at your risk. And this is your fancy fan. I'm not go for it, rely upon it. But when it doesn't happen, you know, understand why. Yeah, that's WTF for the week one. I just laughed at that. And the other one was my favorite. My favorite. Now, see, this one stayed on it, probably because no one goes to the page. My favorite. Love it. The truth about chemtrails official. I love it. And the best thing about that is they made it public. I love when they do that stuff. They make things public because it makes it a lot easier for me to find it and to ridicule it. I mean, to look at it. And poor old Bill's having crashing out today because, you know, persistent contrast, trying to master sun. But it's funny how it only happens on a glorious day. Like, God, if this is not a WTAF moment, then nothing ever will. I mean, the self-awareness of that post for starters is laughable, but you know, persistent contrast, trying to mask out the sun on this glorious day. Like, I'm really not sure where Bill's sort of leaning towards. Like, if he's trying to say that they're contrails, and another tactic these people use is see how this video is short, sharp, very movement energetic. You don't get to focus on a lot. There's not a lot of detail because it's always flicking out back and forward to sort of give that strobe effect, which is that subconscious psychological type thing. This is, oh my God, this is scary. XYZ. I mean, what a load of trash. But I was going to say, but I mean, this is just hilarious. This guy, um, another trick tactic. They use this really nice music, to appeal to the emotions and make the sunshine. I mean, bro, I mean, aside from making me hell motion sick and travel sick at the moment, this proves nothing other than there's some contrails. Now, don't you find it weird? And this is the irony is never lost to me, but apparently it's lost in these contrail people. There's three contrails. Where are they blocking the sun out? Oh, they're like on Cirrus and Cirrocumulus, which is like not attached to those. And even if you look, even if the lay person who has really no much idea about what goes in the upper atmosphere, those clouds are incredibly disconnected. You can see even, if you're a lay person, the disconnect. And then you've got the sun shining through a layer of cirrocumulus. Like, and I still don't get what the issue is about trying to block out the sun. I'm not sure. Are they saying, they're modifying the weather to what make the sun less or more? I mean, yeah. And then I just love these pages. They're all, and the best thing is the comments. Like, no one's trying to master the sun, you muppet. Um, I've mentioned that fan afterwards. But the comments just make me laugh. And then they always go in. Again, remember, rule of thumb, a rule of truth, they always go and grab a slither of facts. Something's actually factual. Yes, there was an actual article about experiences in the sun at one stage there, but anybody believe that? Go to TikTok, you moron. I mean, I just love it. I love it. I live for this stuff. Nothing, promotes your scientific qualifications to be saying this by spelling moron, Morun, Morun. Love it. Love it, Brenda. Hope you're listening, Brenda. Maybe it might be time to put down the gin. Love, step away from Facebook. And she got the reaction, the smiling reaction that she deserved. Learned to spell illiterate. I'm an earth scientist, retired. So good on Laura Davis, although I'm not sure that looks like a boy or a girl, but anyway, Laura, nice to see you. But yeah, look, I'm Dutch, but you know what I mean? Even if you're a guy, you're still a prick. Oh, I love it. I love it when our elderly Karens get fired up and then thank you. for this. So there's the WTAF for this week. I thought I'd love to share that with you because that's just some of the stuff you. I just love to read this stuff. It's just I don't use social media often. The only time I use it is to look at these people and just go to town on each other. And same as YouTube, hilarious. And they go into town in the comments on each other. Fabulous. Well, that's probably about it for this week. Not much else. So we're looking at some showers returning, which is great. And fingers crossed we actually see some. Let's put up the sat peak again, and we'll quickly check the radar before we all go to bed and get ready for work. Oh, it's we're actually finishing early. It's not that late already. Let's dig up the radar and we'll play that in the background. And quickly say hello to the chat and get your questions, and then let you go and have dinner because I can smell mine cooking. Um, had a crap weekend and studying. I'm sorry to hear that, Mr. Mayor. That is not good. Is that because of your demanding client you had the other day that it's like drop everything and fix it now, or was it your ute? I think you did say something about ute too. Has the lawn ute, not storm ute, lawn ute. Oh, the lawnmobile? Maybe yeah, maybe the lawnmobile. That's probably a better term. Is that causing you grief again? Um, Oh, you got bursitis. Oh, bursitis. I've had bursitis, and that freaking hurts. I had it when I was a bit of going to gym in my shoulders, obviously, because doing chin ups and that sort of stuff. Anybody wants to know bursitis? Actually, we should actually get Rachel, who's our resident nurse, who obviously looks after all our health. Thank you so much. Shout out to Rachel. But they're the little pads that are under your shoulder bones, and I think also your hip bones that stop basically your bones sort of rubbing together. My understanding on and creating too many difficulties and sort of issues. And I think with the shoulders, also obviously the impact of gravity pushing down your body as well. So these little pads, the bursts, I think they're called. See how good my brain is to remember when I had it. So they basically cushion it, and when they get inflamed and get annoyed, they really freaking hurt. You can do not much. You can barely even lift your arms up. And it's like a rotator cuff. Oh my God, they hurt and they hurt. And you know what? To get them better, they stick a damn needle into the bursa pad in your shoulder while you're sitting there watching it, and it hurts so bad. And they pump it full of steroids. My understanding, confirm me if I'm right or wrong, RH. Sorry, Rachel. I shouldn't short people's name. And obviously the steroids are to help reduce inflammation and get things back under control. But it freaking hurts. Have you had that yet, Mr. Mayor? I'm not sure but that hurt. That really damn hurt. I think I almost broke the nurse's finger when they were doing it to me because they're gonna get right into the bursters. That's like right into your shoulder joint, so it hurts. Um, it hurts. Let's see if Nurse Rachel has confirmed what I'm saying or not. Um, she must have gone. She must have clocked off and gone to sleep. Gone to have a psychiatric evaluation. 6:47. She's probably gone to sleep. I probably put her to sleep. Um, if you are listening, please, Miss Rach, please confirm I was actually not telling porkies. But I'm pretty sure if I remember that's what bursitis is. Bursa contain fluid in your joints. Yeah, yeah. It's like the cushioning pads to stop your joints smashing into each other in bits and pieces. Are you still typing? Oh, good, oh, good. Yeah, man, I remember it hurts when they put. Ugh, it's it's one of the most annoying things because there's not much they can do about it other than just like pump it full of steroids and then wait for it to go down. And your quality of life at the time is like you can barely drive, you can barely lift your arms up to do stuff. Um, and oh, hello, Mr. Preston, lovely to see you popping in there. Lovely to see you. Um, Hope you're all well up there. Oxymoron, yeah. James Sharp is not off. Well, he's nice because if he's got bursitis, he'd be struggling actually even typing. So that's probably what it is. Dang, that stuff hurts. Yeah, he's running the street in his budgies. Yeah. Um, well, you can sleep, Mr. Preston. I'm not going to think of new shower tunes. I've tried. Everything is subject to copyright these days, and it's difficult. And then YouTube are happy to strike it down for copyright at the strike of a hat. Um, yeah, so you've got to design your own, and obviously, uh, all those little design your own music AI companies charge you through the nose for a trial, and then you forget to obviously cancel the trial after 27.3 minutes, and then they charge you $47.99 ongoing for the next 12 months. Um, Sydney Squad playlist. No, I've heard Sydney Squad playlist. Yeah, that's too gangster for me. Not very weather nerdy. Um, yeah, thank you, Nurse Rachel. It damn is. All right, I am going to put Mr. Preston to sleep now, apparently. Although one would say it's probably the glass of warm milk and the nurse tucking him in the retirement village. But anyway, you blame it on me. That's all right, Mr. Preston. Hope you're fabulous and enjoy your sponge bath. But otherwise, we're going to get out of here. Let's call it early night. We've got no more yapping to do. The WTFs have done, and it is great to have your company. We are going to hopefully see some rain on the back end of this week. So obviously, we'll keep you updated. So keep your eyes out and your notes. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been an absolute pleasure. Commiserations to everybody as we head into another Monday. It should be banned, but anyway, just think about it. Once we hit Monday, there's only 4 days to the weekend, so positive thinking, the power of positive thinking. And just remember, and all of that stuff, when you're feeling a bit glum about it being Monday, there's just people on the contrails Facebook pages across the world. And if that doesn't make you smile and feel better, nothing in life ever will. Cheers for your company. Look after yourself. Hope you feel better, Mr. Mayor. That bursitis stuff is crap to deal with, and it does hurt. And if there's anything obviously we can all do for you, aside from running down the street in our budgie smugglers, if that's your job, let us know. Otherwise, have a great evening, everybody. Thank you so much, and be kind to each other. Good night.